29 past 9. Well, here we go.
It's time now for the latest news on what's hot and what's not in the world of technology with Mathew Dickerson on Tech Talk. Here on TCFM 88.9.
Morning, Matt. How are you?
Morning, Richard. Not quite the same as being in the studio with you, is it?
No, it's not, but it's the next best thing. Are you well?
Oh, I'm well, yep. We're still working at the moment. We're practicing all the social distancing rules, making sure we're doing as much as we can to stay away from people, but we're actually still out there serving people because getting people connected at this point in time is really important.
Yep, I agree. I agree entirely. And I've come back live into the studio here because I was just finding it was too hard to get the information to you and do a pre-record. So I've come back. But we spray everything in the studio. I'm here by myself. It's very eerie to be the only one in the building. Oh, dear.
Well, and that's the thing, I suppose, in radio, it's one of those things that you probably can still do by yourself because, as you say, you're sitting there by yourself going out to tens of thousands of listeners.
Yeah, indeed. People, the 3 phone calls while I've been doing this, look, could you all ring back when we finish Tech Talk, please? People are being very active, a lot of people at home. Matt, I've got you on this morning to do more or less a special Tech Talk, and basically that's to do with improving your speed with your internet, and it's not happening for a lot of people because more people working at home. What are the things that people need to do?
Yeah, most people assume that it is just up to the internet service provider to give them that extra speed. And that's partly true. And internet usage has gone up, Richard, there's no doubt about it. NBN put out some data to say that evening use and late evening use has gone up by 25%, early evening use up by 30%, and then business hours is up by 21%. So there's certainly an increase in the usage. But around the home, there are still some things that we can all do just to make our speed that little bit better. So we'll come back to the internet service provider at the end of it. But around the home, one of the crucial things to do is to make sure that you've got a good connection to your router or your modem getting out to the outside world. Now, ideally, that would be cabled. So if you've got a modem sitting in your office and you're connecting to that via Wi-Fi, there are a whole range of things that can interfere with Wi-Fi. So if you have the ability, don't go and wreck your entire house trying to run a cable through it. But if you've got the ability to nearby run a cable, an Ethernet cable, from your computer that you're working on during the day or from the kids working from that computer trying to get connected to school, run an Ethernet cable directly from there across to your router, and that's always going to give you the best connection. Failing that, have the router...
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people have their router somewhere, and you'd have to have a fairly long cable to get to it, though, wouldn't you?
That's right. So I'm not saying going and running a cable through the house and have people trip over it and break their neck. So it's really that one, if it's conveniently nearby, just run a cable across to it. Most people haven't worried about that in the past. They say, well, I've got Wi-Fi, that'll be fine. And usually it is. But at the moment, you're trying to squeeze out every little bit of extra speed you can possibly get. So running an Ethernet cable if you can. If you're using Wi-Fi, which most people will be, being near the router is really important, so that if you've got the router at one end of the house and your office might be at the other end of the house, you will still lose some speed with that Wi-Fi connection. So effectively making sure you're somewhere near that. And then, just to confuse the issue, there are 2 different ways to connect to your router. You'll typically have, most routers now have 5 gigahertz option or a 2.4 gigahertz. Now, the 5G, just to confuse everyone completely, the 5 gigahertz is not the 5G we talk about when we talk about 3G, 4G, 5G. That's completely different. So the 5 gigahertz is the frequency that you normally want to be connected to with your router. And the difference between 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, if you go back to your old high school physics, the frequency is much higher in 5 gigahertz. What that means is that you can carry more data, but you can actually go less distance. So if you are near your router, 5 gigahertz is always going to be better because it's got more speed. If you're a bit further away from your router, you might try experimenting going back to 2.4 gigahertz, and you might actually find the speeds faster because the range is getting closer to where you are. And a good little tool to use is a tool called speedtest.net. You open that up in a browser, or you can load that app on your phone, and you can actually just run some speed tests, and you can go to different spots in your house and see how these compared to the actual connection you got with your Wi-Fi, and that'll give you an indication of whether or not you're getting some dropouts or some speed loss via your Wi-Fi compared to speed loss via your ISP. The other thing is all about traffic, and I'll go through a couple of points there about traffic. The more traffic you generate in your house, the slower the overall connection is going to be. So it's not just about what you're doing, and in a lot of cases it's about what everyone's doing in the whole area, but just break it down to your house for a moment. If, for example, you've got kids sitting there watching some Netflix shows or watching some movies and it's downloading a lot and you're trying to work at the same time, obviously that's going to restrict your speed. So trying to actually set it up so that you might download some of that content at hours when you're not needing the extra speed, that makes sense to try and vary the times that that's being used. But the other thing that I've seen a lot of over the last month has been people that have got some viruses or some malware on their computers. Unbeknownst to them, they think they're doing everything right. They've kicked all the kids off Netflix. They're sitting there working by themselves, but there's one computer, and it only needs one computer in the house somewhere that's sitting there in the background, ticking away with some bit of malware that's sending information to the internet on an ongoing basis, and that's chewing up all your bandwidth. So obviously it's a good idea all the time to make sure you've got no viruses or malware, but in particular at the moment, making sure all your computers are free of viruses, free of malware. And if they're not being used, turn them off, because there's even things like backup programs that will run in the background, or it might download some updates. So if you're not using those computers at the time, then turn them off. If you're not using your various devices that are connected to the internet, such as your TV, your smart TV, that sort of thing, turn them off, and then you're guaranteeing that isn't being used. The last step in all of the equation is just having a look at your plan with your internet service provider, making sure you're on a plan that's giving you enough speed. There might be some speed boosts available, so see if you can do that. And obviously the amount of data you've got. Most of the plans now limit your speed when you go over your data amount, but some still charge you extra. So you've got to be careful of that if you do start to suddenly use a huge amount more, then you might get an ugly shock next time you get your bill, which most bills come out monthly, and so it might be a month before you get that ugly bill.
Yeah, indeed. I'm just thinking of someone I know who is an HSC student this year, and Dad's working from home, she's working from home flat out, and the young'un is there, he's in year 6, I think, and their computer speed went down drastically during the week, and so when you sent me these notes yesterday, I rang them and read them all out to them.
Good work.
Apparently, they hadn't run malware for a long time. Surprise, surprise. Ran the malware. Oh, things picked up markedly.
Yeah, and it's a hidden one. Not many people really think about that. It's not front of mind. It's easy when you see the kids watching some shows on TV, streaming something that might not have done. They might be sitting there streaming DCFM in the background, which always uses up not a lot, but a little bit of data. But those things are obvious to see. But viruses or malware sitting in the background, they're not always so obvious. So just checking those sort of things. Again, you're trying to squeeze out every little bit of extra speed. A 5% difference here and a 5% there can add up to a huge difference when you're trying to work. Or that video conference, you're getting people chopping in and out, or your voice is chopping in and out. Just getting that little bit of extra speed is enough to make some of those things at least a reasonable experience.
Yep. Matt, there's so much I want to talk to you about this morning. And basically, very quickly, though, can you tell us about the Tallow Smart Toothbrush and give us a couple of games, coronavirus video games for us?
So the
toothbrush. This is clean your teeth in 20 seconds, folks. Here we go.
Well, this is the problem. Most people only probably spend 20 seconds cleaning their teeth, and we know that we're meant to spend minutes. It's a bit like washing your hands. We don't wash our hands for long enough. We don't clean our teeth for long enough. So most people don't spend anywhere near enough time cleaning their teeth. And so people put timers, egg timers, or as you've done examples before where you might sing a song in your head while you're cleaning your teeth. Most people don't do that. So Tallow has actually come up with a toothbrush where they say we give up on people cleaning their teeth long enough, and it's based in the US. They look at how many people have got gum disease in the US, how many people have got teeth problems, and most of those problems are from not cleaning their teeth for long enough. So the Tallow toothbrush, essentially what it does is it sits there on your teeth, and you don't have to do much. It actually basically cleans your teeth for you, but in 20 seconds they guarantee that you'll have your teeth cleaned properly. And I actually spoke to someone just a day or two ago that has a daughter who's a dentist, and I actually said, well, I'd be interested to hear what a dentist has to say about it. So he was going to have a look at that, show his daughter, and see what his daughter thought about the whole concept of using something other than a traditional toothbrush to clean your teeth.
Sounds good to me. A couple of coronavirus video games you've listed here. The Candy Crush saga, what's all that about?
Well, it's actually not so much coronavirus games, but what some of the game providers are doing now is they're providing corona advertising within the games. And I thought this was brilliant. Right. So when you're playing a game, they try and make these games as realistic as possible. So when you're playing, say, a car racing game, you might be racing on the same tracks that the rally drivers race on or Formula One drivers race on. So you're racing on the actual tracks, and they make them as realistic as possible, including all the advertising hoarding or signs along the hoarding around the track. So what they've actually done, a few games providers have started doing it, and they're encouraging all game providers to do it. is actually putting stay-at-home messaging around that hoarding that's around all those advertising signs around the track. So very subtly, obviously people are going to be playing more games at home at the moment. So very subtly what they're trying to do is encourage people to stay at home. So you're sitting there playing your favourite racing game, you've got your car screaming around these corners in this rally, and in the background, stay-at-home messaging, wash hands, keep safe, stay at home. All these standard messages that are important for all of us across the world are all popping up in some of these popular video games. So I thought it was a really clever way for governments to get their messages through to a target audience that maybe doesn't sit back and watch the full media conference from the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I can see that playing a video game would probably be a little bit more enlightening, or not enlightening, but enjoyable for young ones than watching the PM. Matt, good talking with you, mate, for Tech Talk. Thanks so much for the information. I've got a couple of other stories here that I'll bring to people probably later on today and tomorrow, because we've used up far too much time today, as we always do. But anyway, catch you. Stay well, mate.
Thank you. Have a good Easter for everyone, a stay-at-home Easter, and we'll talk again next week.
Indeed, and to you and your family, to everyone, you have a good Easter too, mate. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, mate.